What I'd like to just mention now then, Ed, is this work. You were at Edwards and then you were at Nellis and so on. Yeah, you did also have some sightings of objects, and I wondered if you could describe those to us. I think the first time you were with Jerry Elworth too, I think was the chap you mentioned earlier on, that you worked together a lot, you know, and you handpicked him for some jobs and that. So you're with him, and you're on top of the Fairchild hangar. And that was where they were developing the A-10 Warthog, and this was in about 1975, and it was about midnight or between midnight and 2 a.m. that sort of time, I believe.
Jerry Ellerick and he worked with me and for me at Edwards Air Force Base from 73 to 76. And I believe it was around 1975. It's the middle of the night. We were on top of we'd climbed up the staircases, metal staircase on the outside of the hangar to the top of the hangar. And we were up there smoking.
Were you on a night shift then, or, you know, were you just going up there to do a bit of stargazing? We habitually wandered around everywhere. I mean, we had access to so many areas. We'd get out of the house. I mean, he had babies and I had babies, and sometimes we'd just go for a drive and go down to one of the shops and see who was working and what they were working on, and, you know, just hanging out,
messing around. Yeah, hanging out like buddies do. And we were on top of this hangar, and we're talking or whatever, and Jerry points to the sky almost above us, and it's very dark, but the stars were crystal clear. I mean, it wasn't overcast. And he says, you see those 3 stars up there? And at first I didn't know what he was talking about. They're fairly small. I guess it's, you know, at hand's length, you know, it's maybe an inch or 2. But he says, they're coming closer. And I said, no, baloney. And I finally saw what he was looking at, and they were coming closer. And then as the 3 stars shaped in a perfect triangle got closer, it darkened out one of the stars behind it. And Jerry got all excited, and he says, man, that's something solid up there. You see that star blink out? And I said, yeah. And so it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, to where it would be like being a half a mile from an airport and seeing a 757 take off, except it was looked like 4 times bigger. And it would stop at some point, or seemed to stop, and then moved for a fraction of a second, and then just went off. It was over the horizon in like 1 second. It was just massive burst of speed.
And did you see any lights on this?
Well, the 3 stars were obviously lights on each corner.
So it was triangular in appearance then?
No, it was definitely triangular. From what we could see, it was a perfect triangle. And again, if you go north or northeast of Edwards, you end up in central Nevada. So either southern Nevada or central Nevada, and the only thing that a vehicle would be going to would be either Nellis Air Force Base or Groom Air Base. Yeah. So that was the first time, and we told everybody about it. And a few other people said, yeah, we've seen some strange triangles or whatever, and we didn't think much of it after that. I mean, we didn't obsess about it until we got to Nellis and had another experience.
Yeah. So that was 75 then. So so the next one, well, that was a bit later, wasn't it? The one we're talking about was a bit later, but then there was another sighting that you'd had, I think, which was 78. And this was at sunset, wasn't it, where you were riding motorbikes? I think there were a group of 3 of you were there, or more than 3, or?
I can remember 4. There might have been a 5th one, but usually it was Jerry Ellerick, and Brian and Ray, and we had dirt bikes, cross-country bikes, dirt bikes, whatever you want to call them.
Mm.
And we'd go all the time. Any chance we got, we'd go on our motorcycles and usually take our 22 pistols or 22 rifles, and we'd shoot snakes or jackrabbits, whatever. We're up in the high desert north of Nellis Air Force Base, which now would be called part of the Nellis Range. Now, Area 51's also a subsection of the Nellis Range. So we're riding our motorcycles, and whoever was in front stopped and pointed, I guess, a little bit south of us. Mm. And all of a sudden, the hill was covered with this massive shadow. And then we all looked up to see what was causing the shadow. And there was this triangle that, I thought, and Jerry thought it was like more than 400 feet across, but it happened so fast, it could have been anywhere from 200 to 600 feet. There was no way of knowing. But we first noticed this massive shadow, and we looked up, and it was, you could have, this thing was low enough that you could have probably shot it with a BB gun.
Yeah.
And it was just like a very overcast day where the shadow had cast. And then before we knew it, within a couple of seconds, it was gone. And there was, somebody said they heard some kind of noise. I felt like I heard some kind of hum.
But you certainly didn't hear the roar of an engine like a jet engine or anything.
No, it had no discernible noise, high noise like a jet or a helicopter or anything like that. And
and were you actually were you riding on the motorbikes as this flew over you, or do you stop to have a cigarette or anything, or were you actually riding when this flew over you?
Whoever was in front that spotted the shadow coming across the ground stopped, and then we stopped.
Yeah.
And he pointed and hollered, and then instinctively we all looked up and saw this thing coming over, and it was moving at such a speed it sure as hell couldn't have been a balloon, and it was so massive, and there was no vertical stabilizer or horizontal stabilizer. There was no fuselage. There were no engines that you could see. It couldn't have been a conventional aircraft of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, pretty strange, but I think from your description, it seems plausible to me that you actually saw something like this again in 1979, and if I've understood this correctly, it was actually on the ground when he saw this thing, which, it could have been the same thing or it could have been a different thing, but tell us about that.
I was outside the hangar thinking it was evening. It was a nice day. It was hot, but it's still fairly nice. And smoking a cigarette, and I had the goggles on, but they used to kind of make me a little bit dizzy because I couldn't wear my glasses with them.
Yeah.
So I got in the habit of kind of pull them down just a hair so I could just tilt my head forward and see over the top of them with my baseball cap on, my squadron hat.
Yeah.
And nobody seemed to notice that I could see over top of them. Or at that point, they recognized my face after being up there a few times. So I don't think they paid any notice to me. But I could see at the end of this long hangar on the tarmac or flight line, whatever you want to call it, there was this massive vehicle. And I could see the front tip, and where just the hair where it ended, and you could see it was curved. It was almost like the flat end of the vehicle was parallel to the hangar, except from where I was standing, I could see about a third of it.
Right.
And it was set up about 10 feet off the ground. It was several stories high, the body. And it was massive. I have no, no, several stories. Yeah. 30 feet.
Wow.
I'm thinking about 30 feet, and but you know, I mean, 757 is what the body of it's like 20 feet tall at least, or around that. Well, something triangular, you could store a massive amount of equipment on something that big.
So what went through your mind when you saw this thing?
Well, first of all, I was literally amazed. It had been as like if Captain Kirk had landed his ship on the ground. And it didn't make any sense to me how this thing could fly because, like I said, I couldn't see any discernible engines. There were ducts, ductwork, or variable vectored vanes or something similar to that coming out the bottom that were noticeable. But I immediately thought back. What's that?
What color was it?
It was kind of, again, it was grayish black. Almost had in the bright sunlight, almost had a kind of a bluish undertone, but it was basically very dark gray, flat. I mean, it wasn't a shiny finish on it.
Right.
But I immediately thought back to the sighting that Jerry and I had on the Fairchild A-10 hangar at Edwards, and then, of course, when a number of us sighted it, this triangular-shaped vehicle in the desert on our motorcycle. So I was pretty much stunned, and I kept looking around me because I was afraid somebody was going to come up and club me on the head or something for gawking at this thing. Because obviously he was, you know.
So that was interesting that, you know, you did obviously make the connection probably within a few seconds, and as actually seeing this thing, you did already make the connection to what you'd seen, you know, 2 and 3 years earlier and so on.
Well, I mean, you know, if you think you see a triangular vehicle in the sky, and then a few years later you see a huge, massive triangular shadow in a vehicle above you scooting across, and then you see something sitting on the ground that has to be a triangle just by the angles of what you can see. I mean, it wasn't a usual shape of any type of known aerospace vehicle. Yeah.
And I think later you got more information about what this probably was, didn't you? I presume that came a bit later, or had you already heard talk of this vehicle? You know, because you learned about the magnetic field disruptor and so on. We'll get onto that maybe a little bit, but that's what you talked about quite a bit in your 1998 presentation, didn't you? You talked about the magnetic field disruptor that you were told about.
Yes, I'd like to address that later. But the thing is, like I said, if you lived in Las Vegas or damn near anywhere in Nevada, there were rumors, weird rumors about everything. I mean, they call it the conspiracy state. Some people do, because there's so much weird stuff going on. Yeah. And you'd hear stories about these lenticular or circular-shaped saucers, or some of them even massive, or these cylinder-shaped vehicles or triangular-shaped vehicles. I mean, you'd hear about them, but you pretty much discounted most of it because there were conspiracy theories A to Z.
Yeah,
and rightly so.
The way I look at that now is that's convenient for them. You know, that obviously it helps to keep the secrets. If you've got 150 different theories and stories, you know, generic stories as to what these things are and where they come from, then obviously nobody knows which is the correct one. You know, so it helps the secrecy.
Well, first of all, the newspapers and radio, for the most part, wouldn't talk about it because all the military and government agencies in Nevada, and they were the biggest state employer other than the casino industry.
Yeah.
They just didn't talk about it, and there were so many sightings of unidentified flying objects of different shapes so often that it was just common knowledge, and everybody had seen something. If you lived there a year, you'd seen several somethings in the sky that didn't make any sense. So it just, I mean, it was like, oh, we had a mosquito storm, or anyway, a lot of mosquitoes tonight. I mean, it was so mundane and so often that the news media just never mentioned it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't until George Knapp. And that wasn't until George Knapp and John Lear and Bob Lazar fabricated their story. I won't even go into that.